Welcome to Evolved Sun. This is your host, Matt Finch, and in today's episode, you're going to learn all about the main mission of a wanderer, aka starseed, or volunteer soul. I'm going to be using today as a resource, a Wanderer's Handbook by Carla Ruckert, and in this episode, you're going to get a really good, in-depth idea about what the main mission of wanderers or starseeds is, coming from the raw material in the Law of One channelings by LL Research, from the mind of Carla Ruckert, and also there are lots of different quotes from Quo, Latwi, Edem, and other Confederation higher density being sources and contacts, plus other human wanderers incarnate on Earth right now. You can think of this as a part one to a two-part series. In this first part is the main mission for wanderers and starseeds, and the part two is going to be on the secondary missions for wanderers and starseeds. The main mission is a ministry of being or essence, lightening the self to lighten the planet and the population. And the secondary missions are things like outward service to others, such as teaching, healing, counseling, helping our group, our higher density star family group that we're in, such as Ra from Venus, the Arcturians, the Pleiadians, or the Sirians, etc., and to help ourself. And without further ado, let's get right into the main mission for all wanderers and starseeds. The main mission for wanderers and all awakened beings on Earth at this time is lightening the consciousness of Earth's population and of the planet itself. When wanderers awaken, we generally have a fairly committed sense of our mission. We may have no idea what our mission is, but we know we are here to serve. The first impulse of almost everyone, including myself, is to assume that this mission is a mission in the world, that we are to become teachers, healers, or offer some other dramatic or outstanding service that employs our outer gifts. I have come, many years ago, to value these gifts of doing in the world as outer missions only, and to think of them as far less central and important to our work on Earth than the main inner mission, which is to be ourselves. Our basic mission is a service which I have come to call the ministry of being, or essence, the ministry of being most deeply ourselves. It seems illogical to expect to heal the world by being ourselves, for are we not fallible and human? It seems to strain the imperfect surface self beyond bearing to expect it to heal even itself fully within incarnation, let alone the planet and its people. Indeed, I do not ask us to try to imagine this, rather to move into the frame of mind for more fully grasping the nature of this main mission. I would ask us to move from the mind and its thinking to the heart of the self and its wisdom. For within the heart are precincts of spirit and deeper self, and in those climes we are not ruled by the outer picture, by what we have done and not done. Rather, we are in a world of metaphysical essence, where thoughts are objects and intentions are everything. In this world, what we think, hope, intend, and dream is what is important. Boundaries may still have some layers of existence, and that we may choose for our normal interpersonal boundaries still to exist, allowing us to protect ourselves, as we feel the need, from others in the outer world. But at the same time, we are in a frame of mind which recognizes that we are part of the infinite oneness of all things, and that we are all one. While our minds dwell primarily in this awareness, the lightening of consciousness that we undertake within ourselves effects the lightening of the planetary consciousness. Those of Quo say, "It is well to ponder the self itself, for it is yourself, your consciousness, that which is in the end in union with all that is, that will be the vehicle which is able to aid the planetary consciousness." Ourselves, our consciousnesses, seem in some ways to be obvious and simple. Here we are. We weigh so much, we look thusly. But our true selves are deep and endless seas, and in the part of ourself which is our personality shell, we do not discover extensive fields of consciousness. Working in consensus reality, we seldom touch into our heart of self, unless we have found the secret, which is to respect the self beneath the deeds and duties of the day, the self that breathes in and out and meets the moment. It is this humble and unadorned self that is the part of the entity which each of us is, through which runs the power and energy to heal the planet. Those of Quo say, part of the work of any wanderer is the living of the life itself, for when that which has been in a more compassionate vibration, or wiser one, has all of its forces in harmony inwardly, then the breathing in and breathing out of everyday living is in itself the central portion of the service which you came to offer. That service being to enable consciousness within this planetary sphere to be lightened. Insofar as the eyes of your heart are lightened, so is the planetary vibration lightened. How are the eyes of our hearts lightened? They are lightened as we attend to the dawning of this present moment with our full attention, and with the desire to open our hearts completely to the infinite supply of the Creator's love and light, which is entering into our energy fields at all times. 175 says, "Love, like the sun, can radiate its lovingness from within through the open heart and touch all of life without bias equally. When we are truly transparent, humble, it comes forth grandly to bless its grace bestowal upon all things great and small. There is no greater power than unconditional love, from God, through God, to God." Unconditional love is not an easy attitude when we are directly faced with life's little annoyances, and I can only express my feeling that although such bruising and difficult vibrations as we might encounter can rock us momentarily off balance, we can always wend our way back to unconditional love as we cease attempting to fix the outer picture and focus on any truth the situation may have for us. Remember the flame letter I talked about receiving from a friend in the middle of a divorce? When I received it, I did spend some time flapping about like a fish out of water, trying to craft a loving response, failing to be satisfied with the result, trying again and then giving up for good. That final surrender of speaking was the important point, for it opened my heart to do the work that I could very well and justly do. I examined myself concerning her gripes with me. She felt I was being a critic. Critics are hard to take sometimes. This critical faculty is a big part of my personality shell. I tend to see what is wrong with this picture. I have often apologized sincerely to family and friends for coming across as critical when I have honestly intended to support by suggesting another way, a missing element, a tangle to unravel, a puzzle to solve metaphysically or hermetically. People in my life who appreciate me appreciate that steady metaphysical eye. Years ago, when this friend began her relationship with me, we shared correspondence that spanned her entire awakening, and at that point, my teach-learning side was greatly appreciated. When she is herself, she again will be that personality whom I knew, who was able to listen to my opinions and to feel free to disagree completely. The fact is, we all have strengths and weaknesses, and from time to time we will be perceived as not being helpful, no matter how wholehearted our intentions to be only of service. Trust the person who says we are not helping. Become silent. Any effort we make at such a time to defend ourselves and make another person wrong and ourselves right is wasted, as well as incorrect metaphysically. Far more skillful is it to begin with soul-searching and, that done, to move on to the acceptance and forgiveness of the self, the other self, and the situation, and then to the re-entering of the present moment. It may take us a moment, a minute, a day, or a week to move through those self-defensive and angry instincts we have and into a place of surrender to the open heart and the present moment. Indeed, in serious times of trouble in the past with good friends, I have experienced times of up to 5 years where trust was being re-established. It is always possible if we don't give up. Further, if we are busy defending ourselves or our belief systems, we cannot do planetary work or work on ourselves. So, coming through the defending and the instinctive anger reactions to incoming insult and injury quickly and thoroughly, and getting to the place of surrender to the heart and to unconditional love, which is the natural milieu of the open heart, is our hope in such a situation. As an aid, let me say to every reader that I do apologize for every time I sound in this book or anywhere to be superior or condescending. I am truly not of such an attitude. I do have settled opinions and am deeply committed to the material shared in this handbook, having found it helpful in my own spiritual life. But I hope to share that with the reader in such a way that I am completely transparent. If ever I sound as though I think I know more or am better than the reader, let me say that this is certainly not true, and I know it quite well. Although I have long been a teach-learner and counselor, as well as a learned teacher, I am still just beginning to learn how to listen and to share well. I hope to continue learning for as long as I live. We are all equals here. This is sound information to etch on our consciousness here on earth, for we will find ourselves in confusion regularly. To return to our previous topic, the open heart is possible only when we are not involved with some momentary attachment to disagreement or disharmony. We can hope to lift our lives day by day until we are in a constant state of open-heartedness, but this shall most likely continue, in part, to be just a hope, for our lives will continue to generate catalyst until all our catalyst has been seen, and that is usually not till just before we depart this earthly life, if we outlast it at all. Yet with this said, I can also affirm that in the course of a life consciously lived in faith, the pronounced tendency is for the life experience to become significantly more peaceful and serene within the heart of the self, no matter what is going on out there. And even in the most difficult circumstances, working with our will to seek higher, we can find those moments of the open heart that lie within us, even in the deepest trouble. As we do this work, we are not only working on ourselves, we are doing planetary work. The heart that dwells in this opened love, or the heart that is open to this love and willing to allow it to run through that heart and into the world of manifestation, has done healing work for the planetary energy, the local energy, and the energy of self. Never be ashamed of those times when we have not assessed ourselves as meeting the moment with an open heart. Seek, rather, to return to the open heart as soon as possible, with no judgment or recrimination. Those of Hatan say, keep in touch with the true self. Do not be discouraged when you cannot find it. It is only misplaced. It has not been lost. Just simply continue persistently and faithfully, although every instinct tells you you are making no progress. Those instincts are incorrect, because each honestly made attempt to be of service lightens the planetary consciousness and polarizes you more and more. Don tended to ask about the adept rather than the wanderer or seeker, as he himself was a lifelong student of Western ceremonial magic, and because we were, during the contact with those of Ra, daily offering a magical ritual of protection of our place of working. In discussing visualization, Don asked, can you tell me what the adept, after being able to hold the image for several minutes, does to affect planetary consciousness or affect positive polarity? Ra says, when the positive adept touches intelligent infinity from within, this is the most powerful of connections, for it is the connection of the whole mind-body-spirit complex microcosm with the macrocosm. This connection enables the, shall we say, green ray true color in time-space to manifest in your space-time. In green ray, thoughts are beings. In your illusion, this is normally not so. The adepts then become living channels for love and light, and are able to channel this radiance directly into the planetary web of energy nexi. The ritual will always end by the grounding of this energy in praise and thanksgiving, and the release of this energy into the planetary whole. Here again we see the statement that thoughts are things, entities, within the world of spirit. What we are doing with the directing of our thoughts is important. When we come fully into the open heart, having cleared the lower chakras and entered the present moment, we really do not have to do anything to be doing the work. We only have to be. Mary notes, how can one explain to friends and family, and even acquaintances when asked, what do you do? A response of, I radiate love and light, just seems downright insane in a world geared towards so-called progress. As I told Mary, often this main mission for wanderers does not make sense to people who have not awakened to their metaphysical identity. Therefore, it is well not to share this feeling of the mission of being with those who have not shown some sign of being sympathetic to a spiritually oriented point of view. And if there is a scornful response when we do share this thought, shed that like water off a duck's back and move right on with our work. Jody Boney has a marvelously self-confident view of his service and puts the radiation of love and light in its proper position in his service, even though he has been an excellent outer counselor and teacher for a generation of seekers. My path has led from trying to counsel and teach to just being here. The limitations, pitfalls, and errors of a fourth density, fifth density type service effort lead me to feel I can best serve others and progress by a self-contained approach of simple life and radiating love and light. Paradoxically, the poignant near hopelessness of attempting to teach, even by simply being in this environment, both calls on the utmost spiritual effort as well as self-containment and self-sufficiency. 131 has less confidence in having gotten it right, but she expresses that beautiful assurance that she is listening to a source which will get a message to her if she is to serve differently. Service, another area I think about a lot and feel like I'm not quite there yet. For a long time, I have held myself open to the possibility of being in greater service than I am now. I am aware of certain areas of service that I provide already, such as my work with disabled folks, painting, my presence on the planet, transmitting information as needed, channeling frequency, raising planetary frequency, etc., etc. Anyway, I realize that if there is more for me to do, then it will come to me, just like anything else. She is mixing thoughts of outer service with determination to be present on the planet and raise the planetary frequency, and in her mind, all the services are blending together, which can cause some confusion at times. Yet her faith that she is in the loop with deity and spirit transcends all confusion. And I know of no one who is more responsive to the voice of spirit than this particular wanderer. Mike Karinko echoes some of the above thoughts in this passage, talking about a session with his personal guide, Mira, and strikes me as a good general spokesman for the average wanderer when he says, "During a session with Mira, which was an in-depth look at the self viewing the self within others, she clarified for me the idea of a wanderer being here to just go through life as a human in order to aid the planet. Now I know you've told me this before, but it never really made sense as to how that would offer aid. Mir cleared that up for me by relating to things that I could understand. Maybe that is all I'm here to do, but why then the drive, the feeling that I am not doing something I should be? Is that just within me, generated by my own distortions, my own thinking and my own lack of understanding? The feeling that we are not doing what we came to do, what we should do, is in my opinion based on our enculturation and the absorption into our being of the work ethic of the Occidental and increasingly the Oriental world as well. It is a habit of judgment so deep that we find it very difficult to disconnect. I still routinely tend to talk with my husband at the end of the day about what I have accomplished, and he shares back with me his deeds in the world. We are so profoundly used to measuring value by accomplishment that we do this to ourselves constantly and without reflective thought. In terms of the main mission, we need to re-educate our thinking completely. Those of Quo say, "It is our opinion that the mission and the purpose for which each of you took incarnation was simply to live, to offer your vibrations to the planetary consciousness. It may seem that this offering of self to lighten the planetary web of consciousness is a small thing, perhaps a useless thing, for seekers generally do not feel they are operating at a high vibration. Yet with all the confusion and all the distortion surrounding reactions to the confusion notwithstanding, living moment by moment with the heart open to love is enough purpose and mission to cram a lifetime so full that it radiates life. Offering the self becomes a powerful thing when we realize just how powerful we are in a certain kind of way, in our essential being. If we see ourselves as ET wanderers, we have a special role to fulfill. Those of Quo say, "Those who joined with us on this particular day all have native homes and densities that are sweeter and more open and closer to the original vibration of unconditional love. Beneath the masks and roles that are appropriate for each to play in your dance on the sea of confusion, you are who you are, and it is that essence that is your gift and your main service. As you breathe in and as you breathe out, you breathe the world, you breathe illusion, and you are love. As you have breath, so shall you be mortal, and this mortality clothes one in a flesh that creates a lack of memory, a lack of contact with those things that pertain to your infinite self. This does not disturb your essence. You can lessen the ease with which your native vibrations can ripple out. You can be blessed, expressive of essence. You can be more true to that underlying and encircling essence, but you shall, without fail, perform your service and complete your mission, because your basic mission is to live a life amongst those people with whom you find yourself, having a heart that is consciously as open as is possible on a stable basis." I hope it strengthens us to know that we cannot fail in this mission. It is not a ministry of words any more than it is of outer doings. Those of Quo say, "Wanderers may best bear witness by being most fully themselves, for it is the basic vibratory complex carried in the violet ray by each wanderer that is witnessed by its very essence. Therefore, the wanderer's job in everyday affairs is to keep the channel of selfhood and essence clean, clear, and pellucid. This is in many ways a passive spiritual vocation. Turning to love is turning to the heart of self, for the self, at its foundation, is the creature of love. The greatest single practice for bringing seekers into more and more direct awareness of their role here within the planetary rise in vibration is simply to be the deepest and most profound and true self of which one is capable. In this being there is a releasing of the doings. For metaphysically speaking, it is not these, but rather being and essence, which are the gifts that we have to give to each other. When a seeker becomes aware that it is a creature of will, discipline, and faith, then that person can simply allow those in-streaming vibrations of love and of light to move through the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual channels of the body and out into the world that so desperately needs those vibrations of undistorted love and light. Edom. Allowing the love and light always offered us from the Creator a smooth and unblocked path through our energetic bodies can be done only when we are in touch with the deep self of the heart. We need to be able to be aware that these deeper levels of being are untouched by the surface of things, so long as we keep our energies clear. This is your greatest witness. It is your greatest help to your beloved people and to your planet as a whole, for the planet itself responds to self-acceptance, self-forgiveness, and unconditional love. These are metaphysical vibrations as strong in mending the earth as the pressure of tectonic plates is strong in needing the adjustment of the earth in catastrophic times. Edom. This witness of being can be offered no matter what we are doing. We can all truly offer this service to planet Earth, for we can be, regardless of what we are doing. All persons at all levels of existence, however that is sorted out, can offer the ministry of being. Those of Quo say, "What thing is it that you shall do?" Many are those who feel that they are of no spiritual worth because all they do is work, love their children, and die. And yet we say to you that you may well have prepared this as your mission, as your lesson, as your offering of love. There are those who have come with larger missions, larger in the sense that more entities will hear of the fruits of their particular labors. This in no way distinguishes one love from another, one fruit from another. Insofar as each fruit or manifestation takes part in love, just so each fruit is equal, for unbounded love and limitless light are all that there is. And whether you extend love and light upon your little ones or upon some more dramatic object, you have loved, and love is all that there is. Edom. Sensitive wanderers have often written through the years to express their feeling that they are here to hold the light. We know the reasons for being here include anchoring the love light into 3D now. Joseph R. Kem. If today brings even one choice your way, choose to be a bringer of the light. Gene Jacobson. All I can think of is that maybe I'm here just to hold the light. Karen Eck. While I feel these wanderers are deeply inspired to serve, I suggest the better model of our relationship to the light is of ourselves as light transducers, transmitting energy into other systems rather than as light holders or light bringers, for we do not bring the light, nor is it appropriate to attempt to hold the light. I believe that infinite light is flowing to all of us, all of the time in an infinite supply. Our mission is to welcome it consciously and allow it to flow through us and out into the earth planes, both inner and outer. We may see ourselves as those who bless the light as it comes through us, and those who help the light by clearing our energetic bodies, so that its full power may be flowing through insofar as we are able. Even those who are very ill and sick abed can serve the planet this way. When I was homebound and unable to sit up in the late 80s and early 90s, I spent many an hour focusing on this clearing of the energy system and affirming my hope that full energy might be coming through my physical vehicle and out into the earth planes. We can truly practice this main service under any conditions. As I literally found my feet again after this bedfast period, I had a real spate of relatively disorganized activity as I tried to resume a life that had gotten very horizontal and inner. Following old programming that did not work for me anymore, I found that each thing I tried either was something I could no longer do at all, or something I disliked doing. So I decided I would pull in my imagination and start again, following not what I thought I should do, but what I spontaneously wanted to do. This was an interesting time for me, in which I found my hunger for worldly achievements to be sated, except for the desire to serve. I decided that I really had 3 goals as a person now: to help lighten the planet by the ministry of essence, to take care of myself and my family, and to serve LL Research's light work. Many days, then as now, I cannot fulfill all those goals. I address them by priority. The first priority is to be energetically clear. I ask of myself a cheerfulness of spirit that reflects a resemblance of this dance of life and its supernal beauty beyond the illusion of its forms. That is sometimes more than enough challenge for the day, but I believe in it. The more of this kind of tuning work we can do, the more we can keep our energy systems clear to help run light into the planetary vibration. But even when we are most befuddled and beleaguered, we are still serving in equal measure. Those of Quo say, "May each wanderer find comfort in the knowledge that it cannot help contributing positively to the planetary vibration, even with what stems to be gross mismanagement of time and energy. Yet still in that very basic alienated mindset, there dwells that vibration which is fuller with light. This very alienation is simply a surface symptom of a deep and spiritual gift. Comfort yourself when the heart is heavy and the feelings bruised with the knowledge that you are being of service. You are doing that which you came to do. You may find ways to do it better, but you are not failing, no matter what it seems like." This is important to keep in mind, that we cannot fail at this mission of being. John M. says, "I'd love to step aside from my body at times, so it could be a conduit for a higher energy or purpose, as I don't seem to be making very good use of it myself. On the other hand, I suspect that in order to do that, I'd need to clean up my act considerably and use whatever willpower I have to cast off my worldly ambitions, whatever they are. Cleaning up our act is a desirable ambition indeed, but if things are not all orderly today, we can still serve, by hoping to serve and following that hope, however imperfectly. In offering this ministry of being, we do not need to know how this light we are offering through ourselves will be used." In 1982, Don asked those of Ra, "This entire scenario for the next 20 years seems to be aimed at producing an increase in seeking and an increase in the awareness of the natural creation, but also a terrific amount of confusion. Was it the pre-incarnative objective of many of the wanderers to attempt to reduce this confusion?" Ra says, "It was the aim of wanderers to serve the entities of this planet in whatever way was requested, and it was also the aim of wanderers that their vibratory patterns might lighten the planetary vibration as a whole, thus ameliorating the effects of planetary disharmony and palliating any results of this disharmony. Specific intentions, such as aiding in a situation not yet manifest, are not the aim of wanderers. Light and love go where they are sought and needed, and their direction is not planned aforetimes. In the wake of solar activity, El Niño and La Niña, horrendous hurricanes, drought and flood, seismic activity, and other assorted natural disasters on a global scale, we are justified in asking if this planetary lightening effort is working. Personally, I believe that we have at this time achieved a kind of critical mass with the effort. As more and more Earth awakes, become aware of their spiritual nature and potential, and begin consciously to increase their witness to the light coming through. In 1988, those of Quo reported, "There lies within the peoples of this sphere a growing and nearly critical mass of those who in one guise or another seek peace and light and joy. As each seeker seeks and fails, and picks itself up and seeks again, and takes one step back and 2 steps forward, as we all do in our stumbling way, as each persists, so the light grows. The web of light about the planet becomes stronger, and planetary consciousness is being transformed. There is a concept among your peoples called critical mass, and it is towards this point that the planetary consciousness is moving. A significant harvest of souls shall be moving on to a different reality, a different illusion, more refined lessons, and a gentler emotional, mental, and physical experience, which, upon the other hand, is far, far greater in what you would call the length of time." By 1996, the report was that our efforts had begun to bear fruit. The nature of space-time is beginning to alter. The nature of the way each perceives time and space is slowly altering, even values that your physicists attempt to understand. Subatomic particles and various new particles which are part of space-time and fourth density. Your planet is being prepared to enter this environment, as are all of the global inhabitants. And at this time, we are very pleased to say that much progress has already been made in lightening the planetary consciousness. So we are on our way. As regards physical planetary changes, the inconveniences have begun, reported those of Ra in 1981. They are substantial and indeed inconvenient, but I think they herald a dawning day that is full of promise. Heike Malaska says, "We would curse these erratic weather patterns, these high winds, these ground swells, these intensely cold and warm conditions? Or would we look past that and see the incredible beauty of Mother Earth, shaking and cleansing the old tired debris away, to start new and clean, to make way for a new birth of consciousness, self-awareness? Aye, these times are truly exciting and wonderful. Everything is perfection." What a wonderfully balanced point of view this wanderer of the Nordic lands offers. I think resting in faith is, at heart, a better way to regard these earth changes, and the lightening of the planetary vibration to ameliorate them, than to regard the catastrophes as a critical problem and spend time concerned with things we in no way can control. If we continue to let the light through our energy systems with a full and open heart, light will rapidly increase in our world on many levels. There is no way to figure out just what specific progress we have made or will make, or what changes will come, when and where, without putting more emphasis on fear than on faith. And I am not particularly encouraging to those who want weather reports and the current status of the planetary vibration from our confederation contacts, simply because I feel the request for fear-based information detunes the channel. Those of Quo express this point well. There are many who are changing in ways which are fundamental to consciousness in the groupings of entities within various cultures, subcultures and movements of thoughts which explore regions of experience that are breakthrough areas, shall we say. Thus there is no reliable way of determining the progression of this change. Only the movement of love within each heart has any hope of indicating to entities the nature of this change. As we become aware of this movement of love within our hearts, we may more clearly see ourselves in a way that reveals the nature of our personal or metaphysical power. Realize that the environmental pollution is not nearly as serious an illness to the planetary entity of Grandmother Earth as the lack and increasing lack of certainty among these positive entities that all is well and all shall be well, not in the illusion, but in the reality, relatively speaking, of the imperishable fields of consciousness that each of you is with relation to the imperishable spirit of unconditional and creative love that is the metaphysical planetary entity. It is good not to pollute the streams and forests of your planet, but this is within the illusion, and you shall come and you shall go. However, outside of illusion, the logos, both of the planetary entity and of yourselves, lies in potential, in a mated, loving, faithful and hopeful relationship. And if there is judgment in the attempts to heal the physical earth, then the judgment harms the metaphysical entity of your planet more than the attempts to teach the love of earth in a judgmental way could ever help. How easy it is to judge, especially when we see the damage done to nature by careless or dishonest people. How easy it is to judge in general, both ourselves and others. The key to reframing from persisting to judge when we discover we are doing it is to remember that this is a metaphysical universe in terms of our spiritual work, and that it is far more important to attend to the hearts remaining open than to spend time in anger. Those of Quo say, "You have much to learn. You will make mistakes, but they are not metaphysical mistakes. The mistakes are part of your learning, part of the illusion, part of being human. Forgive yourself, for in forgiving the self, you become able to forgive all, and the redemption in the eyes of a peaceful person is a blessing indeed to those who behold it and to the planet in general, for love lightens the planetary vibrations. This love does not come from you. We would not ask you to attempt to develop such a thing as infinite love. We ask only that you open the self, allow pain to hollow you out and make you a beautiful and transparent instrument through which infinite love can flow. You are a vessel, a precious, precious vessel. What shall you hold? What shall you offer? What shall we hold indeed and what shall we let go? As we approach a second look at personal transformation, this is a central question. The quo say, among your peoples this has been much misunderstood, for people look to see if there is some service that can be their spiritual gift to the world. They are looking for a dramatic role to play, to teach or to heal or to prophecy, and yet these things are forever secondary to the primary mission of each of you upon this particular planet in this particular density at this time. The mission before each of you is simply to address all of that which comes to you with an open heart. Just that. And yet just that is the work of lifetime upon lifetime. For how can a person in a heavy illusion, such as you now enjoy, be fearless? It is not within the physical body to be fearless. It is not within the earthly brain, that choice maker, to be fearless. Indeed, only the foolish are fearless. And yet the teacher known to you as Jesus the Christ has said that it is only to the foolish that the wisdom comes. It is only to those who live as little children that the kingdom is inherited. It is certainly easier to speak of living in a Christ-like manner than to do it. Moving into forgiveness and acceptance, refining the joy that is our basic nature, is not a simple matter, and sometimes it is impossible for a while. When those times of distress are upon us, I would hope we would rest and heal within ourselves without trying to do planetary work or anything else except rebuild our energies. But with each time that we consciously move into the milieu of the open heart's flowing love, we increase our familiarity with and the quality of our memory of those golden moments. There is an ineffable fullness to the path of the open heart, and although I would not attempt to describe it, there is a resonance to such moments or times of awareness that is unmistakable. All of us have this natural and default state or setting within our hearts. We are dwelling in intense delight, bliss, and joy at a very deep level of our essential being. It is the way we all experience life before we have been hurt as children, and it is the energy we will access and use now if we remove ourselves from attachment to our achievements and our suffering, and every other detail that keeps our hearts from being fully open. Those of Quo say, we see upon this planetary sphere that there is the seeding of light in many places where light has not been in predominant expression, shall we say, but has only flickered briefly, and at this time we see that there is a great deal more light beginning to shine forth from many areas, entities and groupings of entities upon your planet. However, as with all transformations within the third density, this is a process which must partake of the breaking or shedding of the older ways of perceiving, of thinking, and of doing, so that there might be made a place for a new way of perceiving and of bringing forth that quality of compassion and understanding that has long been hidden within the hearts of many who have incarnated with the desire that they may show forth this energy of love that will aid not only their own evolutionary growth, but will enhance the opportunity to be of service to others and will also lighten the planetary vibrations as a whole. Transforming the self equals transforming the planet. I thought it worthwhile to revisit the subject of personal transformation in the light of the awareness that to work on the self is to work on the world. Those of Quo say, the seeker is so eager to go through the process of transformation, yet it is a long, subtle process. The implications of any one decision seem, on the surface, limited, but when one is transforming the being, the seemingly limited ripples of effect give way to a much more complex field of interwoven options or varieties of tone and color in the, may we call it, sub-programs within the mind, which are in fact effected by seemingly simple changes in the way of being. To change an action is relatively simple in its effect upon the essential core metaprogram of beingness. It often does not touch any deep programming to change a behavior. But you are asking about changing a beingness, changing the way of perceiving and experiencing one's own essence. And this is endlessly subtle work. Changing the way we perceive our essential being is indeed a subtle and a patchwork project that lasts a lifetime. We find ourselves moving endlessly into the repeated themes of our incarnations, hearing iteratively the sounding of leitmotifs of personal lessons and service, recognizing and responding to them with what may seem only spotty results. It may even seem at times as though we are dying in the middle of a serious transformational change, but we are only rebuilding on the same lot. We are still ourselves. but we are reorienting ourselves to the heart and home of our own truth. Call it inner feng shui. The Kuo say, in a metaphysically literal sense, the process of positive spiritual change may easily be seen to be the tearing down of a previous temple of truth and ethical and moral justice in order that a greater truth, a greater justice, a greater ethic may find manifestation. Some entities have called this experience initiation. By whatever name it is called, there are certain characteristics which mark it. Firstly, there is the pain of death itself, as the entity strips away the smaller truth and asks for all the tendrils of that truth which have moved into the many, many opinions of the self. Then there is the greeting by those who would contest the goodness of this change, this alteration towards the positive. When one is in the process of tearing oneself down in part, one is uniquely vulnerable to voices which have power in the spiritual world, both positive and negative. The positive entities do not intrude in any way which is subjectively apparent to the one experiencing transformation. However, those who are powerful in the negative path find this an excellent opportunity to challenge and test the faith that is willing to undergo this pain in order to experience a larger and more spacious life and more informed in compassion and wisdom. This assistance, both positive and negative, is not precisely a personal thing. The positively oriented assistance responds to the light and the hope for the light which we are utilizing. The negatively oriented assistance wishes control over the light, or to put out the light which we are utilizing. Those of Kuo say, the issues involved in a spiritual transformation are profoundly impersonal as well as uniquely personal to each seeker. That is, at the same time that the seeker is experiencing unique perceptions because of the unique pattern of distortions for that particular entity, that spark is also melding with and creating dynamics with the greater self, which process is very difficult to express in language. For this self is at the same time that spark that is you and all that there is. The layers of self as one moves down the tree of mind are infinite, and as the experiencer moves through and takes part in this process of spiritual change, it may at one moment be at one level of mind, at another moment at a bewilderingly different level of mind, skimming and diving deep, coming up and leveling out, and at the same time not knowing that one is in motion. The spiritual sea is three-dimensional, and you can breathe the water. Encourage, then, the energy of our hope of positive change by allowing it to move up and down in those levels of mind within, not worrying overmuch as the appropriateness of the processes. We may feel blindsided by our own energy systems as it moves into and up from deep mind, bringing up keen emotions and clusters of feeling, but allowing these to move through the system is very helpful, for we usually do not know what we are doing in times of epiphany, at least not in any logical way. It happens too surprisingly. The transformations of the third density almost always come from an oblique angle and are not possessed of those obvious hints that this instrument would call telegraphing the punch. So the situation as regards the basic seeking is that it is excellent to seek intensely and to practice a regularity of meditation, contemplation, and prayer. But it is well to widen the inner definition of environment to include that spiritual environment into which each is permanently embedded, in and out of incarnation. It is from this bedrock of spiritual selfhood that the moments of transformation shall rise, and the angle of perceptions of these transformations shall almost always be confusing at first, but not necessarily obvious. The state of mind, then, that we can recommend is that of the utmost intensity, and at the same time, that of one who is dancing in and out of the steps of living, feeling the rhythms that murmur through the endless hallways of self. It is the feeling of the deep dance I hope to create here, that state of mind within movement where it is acceptable to be off balance, akimbo and unknowing as to how and where the rhythm will take us. Life is often a ragtime number, with kicks and whirls coming unexpectedly. As we go through these times of essential change again and again, we begin to trust the dance of living and the dancer within us, which has far cannier balance and deeper artistry than our conscious minds may claim. When an entity is repeatedly tested and has made several choices to learn more, to serve more, and to be more in the same incarnation, There comes to the process a somewhat smoother or more speedy or more apparent alteration, change, or more correctly, transformation. It is as though, having trusted blindly, repeatedly, the next occasion which calls for the greatest trust, though it be 1 degree more difficult, it is also met by a more tempered incarnate entity, and therefore, if the entity consciously realizes that there is a choice to be made, a new lesson to be taken up, it can then affirm its appetite for the vital push and shove, confusion and disturbance of the lesson to come. Idem. At least, we can hope that the increase of faith from going through this process before will make the experience smoother. For one thing, we learn patience. Waiting is that which needs to be respected to the utmost. It seems within the physical incarnation that the process of change from a small truth to a larger one goes on past all endurance, past all possibility of lasting throughout a transformational period. It is often likely that in the deepest part of the night watches, the self going through initiation shall be awakened and shall feel nameless and formless fear. This is the loving greeting of those upon the negative path who would, if they could, persuade the entity not to transform the self, not even to claim the smaller truth, but to become a victim of fear, hiding the soul and the self in layers and layers of armor, becoming numb, bitter, disheartened, and lost. The one tool that an entity going through change has is blind faith. We can be aided greatly by leaning into this blind faith that all is well, even as we feel the processes of transformation rumbling through us. It is a faith in ourselves as well as a faith that the outer picture holds all that we need in order to work through this puzzle. There are clues and hints in plenteous supply even within your everyday reality, if you would call it that. There is enough information that lies like litter about every doorpost in the ordinary of things to create catalyst, which produces the most excellent manifestation, the most complete transformation, the most satisfying epiphany. For those seekers who are called to such a ministry, the everyday and ordinary surface holds every tool and resource necessary for utter realization and clarification of being. Idem. It is as though we are spiritual farmers. The earth is the deep mind, and as we are able to have access to and cultivate and aerate that deeper mind more and more, we are able to have richer soil, richer experiences of growth, and richer fruit. You must be that which your nature is. You are top to bottom and side to side entities of 360 degrees. The full circle of personality from the lightest and brightest to the deepest and darkest. The skill lies in seeing your emotions as information-bearing energies, offering to you the fruits of your own past and the seeds of your transformation into an ever emptier, ever lighter, ever hollower self. The earthly part of the self, that soil in which the dark nature hides, is a heavy thing, and it is that soil out of which truth and beauty and those mysteries which call you forward grow out of this very soil. Idem. In the midst of confusion of inner change, we do well to call upon self-forgiveness as we perceive feelings of being out of control. What is most uncomfortable about confusion? It is the disorder. It is the feeling that one is out of control. Those who seek tend to see this feeling, which is natural, and say, I should not be feeling off balance. I should be clear. But should is not an helpful word. The way one should be is the way one is. We do not mean to split hairs, but to take one word out of the language which would be perhaps rewarding to those moving through change, and this word is should. The heart has a wisdom concerning time which the mind lacks. Thusly, it is well to let the heart choose what form of comfort it may appropriately and skillfully take to bolster the endurance while going through transformation. Idem. During these times of emotional and spiritual discomfort, we may take our rest in the heart center. In the process of transformation, there is almost always a great deal of sorrow and feelings of loss. For when change is going to occur naturally, it simply takes one as destiny will, and almost never is it a completely smooth road from that one way which was to that other way which has yet to be worked out. And yet we encourage you to have the faith to praise that which is past and to open the heart to that which is, was, and shall be. Idem. It is not easy having faith in the midst of sorrow, loss, discomfort, and often sleeplessness. However, once we can see that change is in progress, we at least know the reason for the discomfort and can begin to form a resolve to choose to follow this pattern through with as much grace and dancing in our approach to it as possible. As the t-shirt says, SHIT happens. Spiritual living is not about avoiding the difficulties of life or the suffering of it. It is about responding to these inevitable catalysts and emotions with as much style and thoughtfulness as we can. If we can follow the love in the moment, if we can take a higher road, if we can look steadily at the metaphysics of a situation and issues of acting in utmost love to all persons involved, we have evaluated the challenging difficulty with our best eye as to the metaphysical creativity. What can we do within our hearts to maximize love? Whom can we serve? Whom can we forgive? In what circumstance can we avoid defending ourselves? What can we do to heal a situation that does not offend our ethics or honesty? All these questions help us act lovingly when we are in discomfort. But naturally, when catalyst strikes, we will often become uncomfortable. And when it is a catalyst that is feeding into a transformational spiritual process, the discomfort will be more complex and many-textured. We need to give ourselves time to go through these periods of pain and these times of distress with other selves, just sitting with the feelings, the situation, the souls involved, giving the pain and affliction of the self our genuine hospitality, time, and attention within our hearts. As you are on your journey of the mind and the spirit, you shall constantly be changing and transforming because of your experiences. These changes are uncomfortable and, therefore, there is pain. To the extent that you cooperate with these energies of transformation, then to this extent the discomfort may not breed fear. You can look at the suffering and say, I must be changing pretty well. But if you need the fear, allow it. There is nothing wrong with protecting your delicate and sensitive inner self. It is possible to allow this fear, and then try just a little less fear, and then a little less, and move slowly, supporting the self, not discouraging the self by railing against the lack of courage, or railing against destiny for the discomfort which change brings. Edom. In times of personal change and transformation, we need to be especially candid with ourselves. Look at where energy is blocked, at where anger or grief is out of control, where obsession and addiction have replaced simple preference. In short, where there is imbalance. For such cusps of change are wonderful moments for profound spiritual work in freeing blocked energy. Each of you has this sterling opportunity to break through the defenses, the shells, the masks that each has gathered about itself to defend itself from those pains which it fears. And the answer to these pains and difficulties is simply to accept them, to embrace them, to walk through them by faith, working in each case to see the love that is in the moment and to be a part of that which is good for all those whom you meet. You see, the confusions, the difficulties, the suffering are symptoms, shall we say, of the process of change of transformation when you have incomplete information. Edom. Embracing our sufferings with faith and walking through them with light and happy hearts are noble ideals. I see this being accomplished again and again, personally, in others and throughout history. Metaphysically speaking, to turn or run from the suffering or to fear it is less efficient than to face it squarely, engage it straightforwardly, and go through it. In transformational processes, all we see out there is a mirror for what is in our hearts. And while these mirrors can be broken, they will just be replaced. They do not go away until we do not need to see them. As those of Quo say, we ask you to gaze with a cold eye upon the suffering involved in transformation, for this attitude is a balanced one, in our humble opinion. It is to the person who is able to gaze upon the dark night of the soul, which this instrument spoke of, with an indifferent eye but a full and willing heart, that this process may begin to come easier. By releasing and yielding to our suffering, by welcoming that which must be suffered as a brother and as a sister, by offering the hospitality of your life, your body, your mind, your strength, and your will to this process, the heart is opened as if by magic, and you will find that no matter how intensely you hurt, It does not kill, but rather cleanses, empties, renews, and readies that instrument to be an ever clearer, purer, and brighter channel for the light that must come through into the world, or the love that must come through into the world, not from you, but through you. Most of us have suffered beyond all description by the time we have come far into life's teenage years, and spiritual study only increases our rate of change, and therefore our rate of suffering. Those of Latwi express their compassion for us and are working through this process here in this illusion. In order for any seed to be grown within your illusion, it must be put within the dark earth. There must be a time of resting there, away from light, in order that what is within the seed might burst the shell, the limitation, the confines of that experience, and break forth toward the light in order that there might be a new being born from the old. The experience of transformation for any entity within your illusion, when seen from our vantage point, takes place in but the blinking of an eye. Yet we know that within your illusion, this same transformation seems to last far, far into the dark and lonely night, and we feel our compassion for you growing as we become one with you and experience that loneliness, the pain of separation. That path of apparent separation can seem to be endlessly prolonged when we are going through these cycles of transformation. Hopefully, we may realize at such cruxes that we are at the limit of what we as conscious entities can do, and so we begin to turn and surrender to faith in the rightness of the overall plan being carried out in our experience, and faith in our surrender to higher guidance. As the entity is looking upon its own experience and is in the middle of things, it will find, if the test be true and intensely enough experienced, that there is a point beyond which the entity has little effect upon the movement of experience and the outcome of events. At this point, the entity, perhaps in meditation, contemplation, or prayer, will find it most helpful to surrender the smaller view of the conscious mind and its analysis of what to do and not to do to the greater self, which some call the higher self, and to those forces of light which guide and protect each entity within the third density illusion. In this way, the entity is brought face to face with its own limitations and its need for inspiration and transformation of its point of view by surrendering the smaller point of view and belief system. Lightos. Surrendering the smaller point of view is a sublime moment in this process of working with the transformations of the self and of the planet. We can hardly ever see good human solutions to serious human problems. We often must, in the darkness of our own unknowing, take it to a higher level by faith alone. We often need to allow our wills to bow before destiny and deity, and blindly trust in the plan being outshone only by hindsight as we go. That instant where we do let go and lean into guidance and faith is like a beacon of light in the metaphysical world. Those moments change and lighten us, and they change and lighten the world. In these times of change, we set the stage for future exhilaration by present pain. That is what the process of evolutionary change is doing. It can be excruciating, but it can also be at odd moments a time of rejoicing, if we are able to spot what is happening and lighten our attitude enough to see the larger view and have faith of this process. Times of pain and limitation are those times to find rejoicing and praise and thanksgiving, for these are the signals that the Creator is especially near, and transformation of the life, new lessons, are about to appear, to one who truly forgives, who truly accepts, and may sit in peace, glorying in the light of the infinite Creator, and resting in the embrace of the universe, with no thought except to wait upon that transformation to declare itself within one's heart. I love that image of waiting upon transformation, of releasing, of surrendering to the loving forces of spirit and guidance. When we know that all is well, we can begin to have the courage to surrender, to accept, to forgive. It is a gift of faith, that surrender. May we come to that moment, in the difficulty of catalyst or the dark night of the soul, ready to move into the light. You are, as a spiritual seeker, in a universe of thought, of being, of essence. It will always be frustrating to live in two worlds, but it is just that dynamic that creates the fertile field for your acceleration of spiritual evolution. Know yourself to be ever on the path and yet ever at rest. Know yourself to be ever learning, yet always knowing. Know yourself to be ever striving, yet always having arrived at precisely the place for which the strife exists. Knowing the self. Allow the self to be the self. Release, and again release the self from the stricture of making sense, of coming up to snuff, of passing the grade. Each release, each forgiveness, each new level of acceptance will bring its own inspiration and offer its own opportunities for transformation. Edom. As we find peace in our own hearts, we'll become able to be peaceful towards other people, and only at that point will global peace be possible in any way in our little universe, except in terms of the stoppage of formal warlike campaigns. Peace is not precisely that point at which entities are no longer engaged actively in shooting at each other in designated geographical zones. It is not even quite when we stop shooting our words, our thoughts, and our attitudes and belief systems at each other and at ourselves with intent to tear down, separate, exclude, and wound. Peace, I think, will descend on earth as a clearer majority of us begin actively loving each other. Nothing less will do. That is my opinion, and I hope I am wrong. For arriving there is the end of a long road. Maybe it will never happen here in third density. Perhaps we will be only trying for peace within our hearts or within the world within this density. But it does not change the worth of this process of transformation, this process that sharpens our deeper being's presence in our conscious minds and our awareness of the nature of that beingness. Our opportunity in this incarnation is so to live that we maximize our experience, service, and learning, surrendering to faith and guidance, especially as we experience change and difficulty, optimizes our chances of dealing with these challenges from a sound metaphysical point of view. It lightens and sometimes enlightens ourselves and our conscious minds, especially as we repeat this sort of choice in times of trouble. It gives us the best chance at healing situations and relationships that feed into our incarnational lessons. And as we do this within our own hearts, the planetary consciousness lightens a bit more. It is a good plan. It is our part to carry its banner of essence and being out onto the jousting field at this time for the duration of our life here on planet Earth. It is a quixotic ministry to serve by being. May we do it loving justice. May we who have come to this planet as brothers and sisters of sorrow do all we can to offer our deepest selves to this process and this service of being. And may all Earth natives who have awakened and are now ready to graduate and move into the metaphysical densities likewise offer themselves with a full and flowing heart to this jest. The world will often laugh at the ministry of being. Do not doubt it in yourselves or in any you meet. This plan is working, and we cannot help but help it to work, as we become aware of the nature of metaphysical reality. Anybody can do this ministry. A laborer working overtime can do his work with love. An at-home mother can change the diapers with love. I can wash the food I am preparing with love. We can meet the moment with a full and open heart no matter what we are doing at the moment, or we can try to, which is just as good, metaphysically speaking. To each, my deepest sympathies for the inevitable suffering, and my deepest thanks for every effort that is made to create from this suffering the self-loved being, the ministry of essence, the open heart, the life of beauty and service. Blessings to all of us as we walk this fair but dusty highway together, and the light grows. It is a wonderful journey to be on, with marvelous companionship. And that concludes this reading for today. Thank you so much, as always, for listening. And after hearing all this information, you might have come to several realizations within your own self. And if you'd like, feel free and warmly welcome to post a comment below with one of your insights. Or you can give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already done so, share this video, add it to a playlist, and take good care of yourself. Stay tuned for the second part of this on a wanderer's secondary missions, and I'll see you then.